How great is she? Joining us now, New York Times reporter Yamiche Alcindor and Army veteran, founder and CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, our buddy Paul Rieckhoff. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Paul, congratulations on the forum last night. You guys were a big sponsor of it. We know about the problems with the VA. They started to address some of the suicide statistics last night. But from where you sit, what do your veterans need from the next commander-in-chief that they don't have right now?
Well, they need the continued focus that we had last night. Last night was historic. It wasn't perfect, right? There's plenty more we wish we got in. Frankly, I wish the veterans had their own show. We probably need about 3 hours of just veterans questions. But for the first time in American history, we had a real commander-in-chief forum among the candidates focused on our community. It's never happened before, so it was historic. And I think it's the beginning of a conversation. We hope that the commander-in-chief forum becomes a regular thing. We want other candidates involved. We want to expand that conversation. But we finally got to suicide. We finally got to VA reform. We finally got to military sexual trauma. A lot of other issues that our veterans have been really screaming to be heard on. And most of all, you got to hear from amazing veterans. You heard from the real people in the field who've been experiencing this and living this every day from all parties. So this was a game changer, we hope. And it's really put veterans issues front and center, we hope, all the way through the campaign and all the way into Veterans Day, which is right after Election Day. We want to unite everybody. That was a big question we had. Will you come back to New York after the election and unite on Veterans Day?
Yeah, let's hope this isn't a one-time thing where they stick and move away from these issues. Bob McDonald came in from the private sector hoping to help reform the VA. It's been an uphill climb. I don't have to tell you that. The positions last night, not to privatize, although Donald Trump entertained the prospect of perhaps privatizing parts of it. What's the best solution that you guys have come up with to reform the VA?
I think it's a mixed solution. I think that we've got a whole policy agenda on our website. If you go to IAVA.org, we can see the details on how to reform the VA. But I think our generation wants solutions. We don't want just the VA. We want to be able to have flexibility. We're not in favor of privatization, but Trump said, I don't support privatization, but then privatization. So I think there's a real difference between the candidates there. We want a system that works. It doesn't have to be rocket science. We just want to be able to see doctors, we want to get good care, and we want to get through the red tape. And that's what we really need a commander-in-chief to commit to and actually deliver on.
So, Yamiche, I think after last night and hearing some of the answers, especially from Donald Trump, and also seeing some of the answers that happened on our show this morning with Gary Johnson, what more can we do as reporters to cover this story?
I think what we can do as reporters is really, one, ask the questions like what happened this morning. I mean, the fact that we've had someone who's a presidential candidate ask what is Aleppo we've had so many stories, I would just say at the New York Times, but also I think all over the world, and that we had that whole image of that young boy that went viral. So I don't understand in some ways as a journalist and as an American citizen kind of how did you not know about Aleppo. But of course, brain farts happen, things happen. But at the end of the day, I think what we should do as journalists is really also talk about fact-checking and talk about challenging people for real policy issues. I think I covered Arlington Cemetery for a really long time, and I got to know a lot of military families, and what I took away from that experience was that these families really feel like they're completely not seen, they're completely kind of left on their own, that they're a population that is just forgotten by the vast majority of Americans. And I think to be able to really ask those questions, to be able to ask people, how are you going to fix these issues and what are your real solid solutions, and fact check them. I think last night we saw Donald Trump say that he did not support the war in Iraq. Many people have fact checked him and said that that's a false statement. BuzzFeed broke that big story saying, here is him on Howard Stern saying that he does support the war. So I think being able to do that as journalists, we have to do that, even if it's tenuous and we want to move on to the next question and we want to have multiple broad conversations. We have to stop and say, wait, we really need to answer this question. What is going on?
We need another commander-in-chief forum with Gary Johnson. And let's have one with Jill Stein, and let's have one with anybody who wants to be president. Let's open this conversation up. Let's have them be asked the hard questions from veterans. A lot of folks, want Gary Johnson to be involved in the process. IAVA is pushing for an expansive process, and we think the next commander-in-chief forum should include him and any other person who wants to be commander-in-chief. These are the hard questions that every candidate should ask. And after 15 years of war, it's long overdue.
Paul Rieckhoff.